All right. Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amuna, and I pray everybody is doing well. Let me go ahead and bring in this thing. I'll be right back. Yes, indeed. All right. I pray everybody is doing well this blessed day. Let us continue to give thanks. Always my phone wants to make noise while I have gotten started. But let us give thanks for another day. You understand me, I said? Hold on now. Oh, what going today? Let me turn off that. We have some. I was trying to do this when the little thing is playing because it seems I can't do it until I go live. And it's doing the most. So for those who've just joined us, welcome to the conversation. And we're about to get into this next portion of Amy and Marcus. Or maybe not. Maybe Amy got a new man. We know we have heard that Amy was going on with some things. And thank you for all your comments in the comment section and just appreciating history and learning it from what it is. Again, as I continue to say, people are people and people. That's what they do. Right. And so, you know, it's easy for us to judge retrospectively, but being in the situation, I'm a little bit distracted. I'm trying to fix this thing here. With being in the situation, artist says you're getting carried away. That's how the search is. Once you get started, you're like, whoa, it's a stream, you know? As long as you understand where you're trying to go, sometimes you just pick up little pieces here and there. Even in this search for me, because my family history overlaps during this time, I'm getting information or gleaning information that's applicable to understanding my own family narrative. It's funny because I found my and then I'm going to read. I found my great grandfather's picture, myself and my mother, after years and years of searching, and I also found a relative. And when I shared the picture with the relative who'd never seen it before, the first thing she said was, "He looks like a Garveyite," and I was like, "Eh?" But the reality is that he was living, my great grandfather left Jamaica, came to America, and living in the same area as Garvey. Actually, I have the address and I've been meaning to cross reference how close they were because he was living on Lenox Avenue, right? He actually moved to America and never went back to live in Jamaica. So a lot of this history, depending on where it happens, overlaps. Like I was saying about the overlapping history of Amy Ashwood in Panama. At that time, the great grandmother, who both of these came together to make my grandfather, right? So my great grandmother ends up in Panama, like Amy did, and my great grandfather ended up in New York, like Marcus did. So as I'm reading this story, I'm not just reading it like, oh, entertainment. I'm actually getting an understanding from a different perspective because they didn't write it down. So we didn't have the depth of the story kind of like we have with Marcus and Amy, right? And so I'm using their lens by which they were having this experience to kind of picture, because what happens is, I'll just take a moment before I go in, is that when you start to do this search, because you're not from that time, because you don't know the other outlying factors, the culture, the climate of that particular time, because as we see today, culture changes very quickly. You know what I mean? What was acceptable or what happened 30 years ago doesn't happen today. You understand what I'm saying? So culture changes very quickly. So even the culture of our great grandparents may have been very different than the culture of our grandparents, right? Because at this time, technology is pushing everything so forward very quickly. And so I used the story, among other things, to kind of get a grasp on what was happening in and around. Because I often find myself thinking, when you find a little piece of information, because the documents are not giving you the whole story, but you find a little piece of information and you say stuff like, what were they thinking? You know what I mean? I find myself saying, huh? And I grappled with it for a long time. So in even watching Amy, and even the transit of people going back and forth from Panama to Jamaica, from Barbados to Panama, some people staying, some people moving on. That was kind of the route that many people took. They would try their hand in Panama because it was open until the close of construction, and then some people would either go back to their land, or they would try and say, you know what, they're not going back, and they'll go to America. And so again, yes, I agree with you. There's a lot here. And a lot of people tended, like artists is saying, to be carpenters and tailors and dressmakers because they had an apprenticeship program, as we read about with Marcus. After slavery, there was apprenticeship programs that people were encouraged, young people were encouraged to enroll in. So my grandmother particularly, she went and learned dressmaking in the city, right? They're from Clarendon, but the conversation is go to the city and learn a trade. And so her trade was dressmaking. You know what I mean? So it's just interesting. If you go and you don't have this context, or you don't want to know, then you may come up with conclusions that may not necessarily be accurate. So sometimes people are like, dang, Amuna, you go on a lot in, because I want to be accurate in the retelling, and kind of, it's like a period piece. It is really. So even when someone is going to do a period piece, like they're going to write a novel that is spaced in a certain time, or they're going to do a movie, they have to do research. You have to do research. You can't just, you're going to have to see what kind of candles did they use, what kind of lighting did they have, what kind of fabric did they have access to. All of this is to give an accurate retelling of the situation. And for people who don't care, them just make up a detail and go on with it. But I happen to care, so we got to it. So I'm glad you found it, artist. It is an adventure, so enjoy. With that said, make we get into some more of this. Because yesterday, Amy, make we know, say, she is not pleased with number 2. Okay. And she lets us know that they never divorced in her estimation. And as we know of now, I could be wrong, Marcus did not produce any information to the contrary. So we have to go with them did still married on paper. All right. So now we're on chapter 5. And the question is, if Amy get new man. Now we know she was baking bun religiously, right? And now we have the chapter that says a woman's scorn. That's the name of the chapter. And then there's a picture of Amy Ashwood and Sam Manning, 1927. A lot of people who are bald said this is crazy. If them did ever know the real story of their great granny and then great grandfather, or if them really did know the story of their grandmother and grandfather, who at that time things is happening, but people are not talking. Chief, yeah, look for trouble early. People, if they really know the real stories, maybe they would, but they know the official versions of stories, right? So I learned in this search, we have to take everything with a grain of salt, because even when we think we know, we don't know. As a matter of fact, we don't even got to go back that far. For some people, we don't know the real stories of our own mothers and fathers. We know the official version. You know what I mean? Anywho, within a few months of separation, Amy Ashwood began the incessant travel that was to characterize the rest of her life. So after she and Marcus, the court didn't give them the official separation. They both got kicked out of the court with that. But she's like, I'm going on the road, yeah. Her first major destination was Montreal, where she had spent part of her honeymoon and where one of the earliest UNIA branches had been established. Both she and Marcus were well known among the city's black community. And remember, Marcus met Amy doing work. He didn't meet her like how Amy had just class number two. Like, yo, when I met you, you wasn't in the public eye. It seemed like she was flexing, but in reality, according to the record, Amy been in the public eye. I'm talking about number one. She was already in debating clubs. She already was an outward going person. That's exactly how Marcus met her. So the fact that she continued in that vein is no surprise, right? It says, in Montreal, Amy became involved with, quote, health sanitariums located at 34A Peel Street. And these health sanitariums, a weird fun fact, that was during that time and a little before is like all the craze. And actually, Kellogg's, the doctor, it was a doctor who created Kellogg's here in America. And he had a health sanitarium. That was an interesting story. But again, health sanitariums were like popping up all over. So this whole how people are getting back to nature and this, that, and the third, it's not new. People been doing this type of stuff. So let's continue. Garvey at the time had recently opened negotiations with the Liberian government with a view to of eventually moving the UNIA headquarters there. And again, the history of Liberia is that it was a colonized outpost created for peoples of the West to relocate, and this happened way before Garvey. So it's not a surprise why he picks Liberia. The first attempt, as I had spoken about before, failed because the melanated people of the West had objections to going. Maybe another time we'll read one of the vocal persons of that time that said why he didn't want to go and why the people shouldn't go, X, Y, and Z. But we're going to continue. UNIA interest in Liberia influenced Amy's desire to go there at the time. For the rest of her life, she evinced a special talent for showing up wherever Garvey happened to be and moving among his friends, admirers, and former associates. Garvey, I got daddy. All right. Me just go happen for daddy. To see where I'm dip. A special talent for showing up wherever he was going to be. Amy's projected Liberian trip brought her to the attention of the United States and British officials. Garvey and the UNIA were at the time under heavy surveillance by the United States, British, and several other governments, none of whom took kindly to Garvey's efforts to awaken the African to aspirations of nationalism and anti-colonialism. So it's interesting. You wanted them to go back there, but you didn't want them to be cohesive in going. I don't know. Or maybe it's like, oh, time's up. I wanted you to go, but you can't go no more. I don't know. Amy, bearing the Garvey surname, quite naturally also fell under suspicion. And on July the 2nd, 1920, the British Consul General in New York reported her proposed Liberian trip to the Foreign Office in London. So this is not long, because remember, they get married in December 1919. So 6 months after he done set it off and we are gonna broke up and blah, 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 she had planned for make trip. It says here, the New York consulate advised that it had issued her an emergency certificate for travel to England only, rather than the passport for travel to England and Liberia that she requested. Thereafter, it would be up to the Foreign Office and passport control authorities in London to facilitate or prevent her trip to Liberia. The Consul General passed on Amy's assurance that, quote, she has separated from her husband and is not in communication with him. So they're probably like, oh, he's sending, I don't know, what we would have to read, but they're probably concerned like, oh, they trying to make connects over there. He probably sent out Amy. So we got to make sure that she and him is not in cahoots, right? The Foreign Office appears to have contacted the United Embassy in London, for the latter sent an urgent telegram to Washington on July the 24th, inquiring whether Amy was, quote, connected in any way with Garvey's anti-white activities, end quote. According to this telegram, Amy was scheduled to depart New York on August 5th, 1920. I suppose she took the house money that she sold at 8,900 on steamship Mauritania. The reply came back from the Department of State in Washington that there was, quote, nothing showing she's mixed up in Marcus's activity, end quote. From Montreal on August the 4th came a hysterical, though not unusual, communication to New Scotland Yard, London, from one F. Wilson, who identified himself as connecting with GPO in Winnipeg, Canada. He wrote, Mrs. Harvey, I suppose it's supposed to be Garvey, wife of Mr. Marcus Garvey, is shortly leaving Montreal for Liverpool, England, bound for South Africa. Informer. Greetings to those who just joined us. Welcome to the conversation, Leah. Informer. Boy, Shalif. Quick, 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 Shalif. If you didn't want the people here, then why are you mad that they're leaving? It's just confusing. This woman is very dangerous. I wish you do. It is her intention to organize an uprising among the blacks. And if you value the peace of Africa and the welfare of England, you will in some way stop her from entering Africa. End quote. Mm-hmm. And nevertheless, receiving a clean bill of health from the British authorities, the Home Office on August the 13th concluding its investigation with the comment that, quote, Mrs. Garvey has no connection with the anti-white activities of her husband, and there appears to be no objection to the issue of a passport for her journey to Liberia when she arrives in this country. So they were preing Marcus's sentiments as anti-white. And oftentimes you hear him say that he is speaking to the, quote, black race. And they perceive that as meaning that you're speaking against the white race. It's very, very curious. And this is, you have to understand not only colonialism, but the mentality of slavery. We've seen it in recent times with the whole controversy of this life matter. That means you're saying that that life doesn't matter, right? And this type of, for lack of a better word, black or white, this type of polarity doesn't allow for honesty in the conversation, right? And so he's telling the people, listen, get up, get yourself together, and establish yourself somehow is a threat. And it is a threat because your condition is not by happenstance. That's why it's a threat. You know what I mean? The condition is not by happenstance. It's intentional, right? So this is just curious that they were trying to stop her entry. It says, Amy seems not, in fact, to have left for England at that time. She arrived in Liberia 26 years later in 1946. So it's interesting that she eventually gets there, but Marcus, you know, based on many reasons, as we could see, if they didn't want her to get in there, they definitely didn't want him. Meanwhile, the war between the former spouses continued unabated. There were suits, countersuits, threats of suits. A peer suit, I must say tailor shop them working on. Suit, countersuit, and threat of suit for divorce, bigamy, and alimony. Marcus would recriminate publicly over Amy's shortcomings, and she, for her part, would miss no opportunity to unleash against him the full fury of a woman's scorn. In February 1921, that's what I said, them never married long enough to have no real problem. This problem existed before. 6 weeks and they mash up already? That quick? In February 1921, for example, with the UNIA in Buffalo, New York, thriving despite dissident elements in the community, Amy sought to ingratiate herself with the anti-UNIA element. Oh boy, she fraternizing with the other side. The Buffalo American carried her charges that Marcus and Reverend J.W.H. Bro, how much name him have? Reverend J.W.H. Eason UNIA leader of the American Negroes, had misappropriated the organization's initiation fees. Her allegations had little or no effect on Garvey's following in Buffalo. Come on, Amy. Amy, why you not stop? You come all the way to our next chapter if you continue your behavior. According to Amy's affidavit of 1924, peer affidavit, she eventually left the United States for Europe in September 1921. The FBI put her departure at October 1921. As early as April 13th, 1921, Amy had petitioned the court appointed referee looking into her husband's finances for her permission to leave the country. She said she wished to go to Paris with a lady companion, partly on her doctor's advice to escape, quote, the depressing and sorrowful environment caused by the suit which her husband, the plaintiff, brought against her. Yo, first Amy told us, greetings for those who just joined us. First, Amy told us that the doctor told her she needed to drink whiskey. And now Amy's saying that the doctor told her, yo, you need to go to Paris. You need to chill out because you're stressed right now. Okay. What a nice doctor. And also to take advantage of the remuneration, no, opportunity in Paris. Remunerative. Sorry. She portrayed Marcus still stranded in the Caribbean and frantically going from country to country in search of a visa as cruising the Caribbean in his, quote, private yacht. How she know that if him stuck? She assured the court that he was, quote, consulting his own leisure, convenience, interest, and advantages by an indefinite and upon information and belief undetermined trip to the West Indies, South and Central America. And we kind of read about this when he went on a cruise, not cruise. She got me saying cruise. When he went to go raise awareness and plant new UNIA offices, he got stuck out the country. And so I don't know how she's getting the information about what he's doing, but according to Amy, he's living it up. Okay, he's cruising. He's on the Caribbean cruise line on his private yacht, drinking Cristal, and she over here suffering. It appears that Marcus may have celebrated Amy's departure by bringing another suit. The author is funny. Why did he just say Marcus celebrated Amy's departure by bringing another suit? They're in love at court, but no one appeared in court to pursue it, and it was, quote, marked off, end quote, the list of matters for trial. This was on March the 2nd, 1922, and by then, Marcus was about to execute a plan which would have made a new suit on his part unnecessary. We're trying to figure out, did Amy get a new man? They set me up in the beginning of this with Sam, but Sam doesn't come in yet, so we have to be patient, yeah? Where are we here? Amy had sued Marcus while he was in the Caribbean, and now the tables were to be comprehensively turned on her. For her absence in Europe enabled Marcus to deal the most decisive blow in their long and bitter struggle. On June 15, 1922, with Amy Ashworth absent from the country, he was able to obtain an uncontested divorce in Independence, Missouri. He even claimed that he and Amy Jakes had been resident in that state for 12 months. So this is, okay, so, and it says claimed because he wasn't living in Missouri. So the question is, like we were asking, just produce the paperwork. The question is, did he run a judge? Did he chop the line? Is this an official documentation that he obtained? Because it says specifically, and how would I know? I would have to go see what the divorce laws in 1922 were in Missouri and why they chose that state of all states to go and try to do this, right? And she's out of the country, so it's uncontested. So did he obtain this? Possibly, possibly not. And if he did, why didn't he just produce the paperwork? Because if he obtained a divorce under false grounds, is the divorce still legal? All these questions, right? So it says he obtained an uncontested divorce in Independence, Missouri. He even claimed that he and Amy Jakes had been resident in that state. How you was resident and you was paying $95 in Harlem for an 8-bedroom, Marcus? The divorce decree claimed that Amy had been, quote, summoned by publication. So the same pit, them said, if you dig one pit, dig two. The same pit that Amy tried to dig and was paid the $100 not to put his name in publication for 6 weeks when he was stuck outside of the country. It's the same thing Marcus turned around and said. Oh, gosh. Whether he did it or not, we don't know. They say if you dig one pit, dig two. That means don't set for nobody, basically. On June 15th, 1922, when Amy Ashwood absent from the country, oh, we read that. The divorce decree claimed that Amy had been summoned by the publication, but had failed to show up in court. It declared Garvey the, quote, injured and innocent party, end quote. Una too terrible, man. Una too terrible. What? And ordered Amy to pay the cost of the trial. After 2 years of fierce but inconclusive legal struggle, one side had finally won a decisive victory. The court decreed in its legalistic grandiloquence as follows. So remember, we balling for it, right? Where is it? Because I didn't see it before here, right? So he's saying that the court decreed this. And let me see. Hold on. Because this is what we was asking for. Good night. Welcome to the conversation. This is what we were asking for, Marcus. Did Marcus not want to promote it because Marcus was running game and he obtained it by illegal means? It says here that this is a divorce decree granted June 15th, 1922 in the Circuit Court of Jackson County, Missouri at Independence. Marcus Garvey versus Amy Garvey, defended 45579, signed on the 16th of June, 1922. Marcus Garvey Memorial Collection, Fisk University, Box 4, File 7. That's what I was asking for. Where is the divorce decree? So they're saying that this is where the divorce decree can be found. But it looked like Garvey was fudging the paperwork. So make we read the divorce decree. Should I rename this? Hold on. Because hold on there. I thought we were gonna. I got Sam. I did my homework today. I got Sam Manning all queued up, right? I thought we were gonna go into Sam today, but no. Marcus got one more among many tricks up his sleeve. So now I have to change this cover real quick. I have to change the cover because Marcus got one up on Amy. Hold on. Hold on, peoples. Hold on 1 second. Because that's not what we getting today. And we ain't into false advertising. Marcus, surprise. Because that's what I was saying. If this is the case, then where is the divorce papers? Why are we having all of this conversation? But if it's not legal, then that could be why. Because all he had to do, like yesterday, when we read what you call it, when we read the Gleaner, all he had to do was like, yo, just like what we read on this date, I got divorced from her, this, that, and the third. Unless you obtained it by questionable means. Hold on now. Let me update this thing real quick. Sam, we're gonna have to come back to you.
Let's introduce ourselves. We're the Yummy Cottage. Okay, this video is brought to you by the Yummy Cottage. You open your search browser, you put in the Yummy
Island Twist follows Jackie. Hold on, my finger slipped, peoples. I'm like, what? Yummy Cottage commercial. Hold on, my finger slipped on that one. 1 second. Greetings and welcome for those who just joined us. I've been a little busy behind the scenes, so these lives have been just a little bit easier for me for right now. So bear with me. You understand? Not as published as the pre-record, but we have to change the screen because we're not getting no song today. We have to go in at this surprise. Surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise. He was like, oh, wait, she gone? She there? She gone? She lock the door? Cool. He pops out. He had to have done some research because why Missouri? Why Missouri? Of all places, Marcus. Hold on 1 second. Let me switch up some stuff right here. And then we're going to get back into this. Everybody, say hello to each other in the comment section. I have to change this later. Let me go back to work here. All right, we already changed that. Yeah, the first caption, I was like, yeah, because the guy's name is Manning, but we're not going to get to Sam today. We got to get to Marcus' trickery right now. So let's go. Now, so he told them that he ran it for 6 weeks in the paper. We don't know. He waited till she was gone. Him saying she finally gone, right? And then he ran off to Missouri, claiming he lived in Missouri for 12 months, nothing Augusta, okay? And because he was stuck outside the country, so he was over here by any means necessary. And this is what they claim it says. Now, on this day comes plaintiff in person and by attorney and defendant, although duly and lawfully summoned by publication, proof of which is made and filed herein comes not, but make default. Court finds that the allegations in plaintiff's petition are true. The plaintiff is the injured and innocent party and entitled to the relief prayed. What? No, it's not, Norman. We went over that. I don't think it's coincidental at all. I don't think it's coincidental at all. It says, whereof it is adjudged and decreed by the court that the bonds of matrimony heretofore contracted between plaintiff and defendant be and the same are hereby dissolved and for naught held, and plaintiff forever freed from the obligation thereof. It is further ordered and adjudged by the court that the cost herein be paid by, and that the execution thereof issued against the defendant. So Holmesies went to Missouri, pulled up on paperwork, knowing she wasn't going to get it. But again, can we feel totally sorry? She was willing to do the same thing to him. And then made him the poor thing, and they ruled in his favor. So when he says he got a divorce, this is what it's saying. But the question is, was it legal? It goes on to say, at the time of this divorce, Marcus was on an extensive tour of the United States, which took him along the West Coast and through the Deep South, among other places. On his way back to New York, he married Amy Jakes, his companion on tour in Baltimore on July 27th, 1922. So, number two is probably like, when you got divorced, little liar, God, Marcus? When you got divorced, sir? Me there with you, Marcus. So, not even 1 month good. Not even 1 month good. Him, quote, married her. So, question, if the divorce is not legal, what would make a divorce not legal? Let me just, what terms would make? Hold on. Oh, divorce, it says here, was barred if evidence revealing any hint of complicity between spouses to manufacture grounds for divorce, such as if suing party engaged in procurement of connivance contributing to the fault, such as by arranging for adultery, condonation, forgiving the fault either explicitly or by continuing to cohabit after knowing of it. So, Marcus, you stayed there, or reincrimination, the suing spouse also being guilty. Because how is he gonna? How? Wait. Now I'm confused. If the suing spouse is also guilty, these are the ways in which the divorce is not valid. Because how is he going to tell them that he's living with her 12 months in Missouri, and also married to Amy number one? That's curious, Marcus. That's probably why you ain't want to hop on that divorce joint too long. You're like, yeah, let's just keep it moving. Let's not look over here. Nothing to see here. Keep it moving. Nothing to see. Let's continue. Let's continue. It says here, Leah says, normally engaging to cold relations during the separation period will be grounds not to grant it. This is what I'm saying. The fact that he just told on himself, that's weird. It says, I guess the both of them have misunderstanding of the decree. Yeah. I mean, yeah, they weren't married that long. So let's continue here. So it says here, where are we? Amy Ashwood, no, wait, boom. The Reverend J.R.L. Diggs, prominent Garveyite and pastor of the Trinity Baptist Church, performed the ceremony. Amy Ashwood retaliated immediately, but the damage was done. She had her lawyers in the Harlem firm of Marshall and Garrett file for divorce, with Amy Jake's name as co-respondent. Yo, Jada, you me say, what? I got them over there, do. She never have nothing to do. Clearly, the Chicago Defender, which hardly never missed an opportunity to poke fun at Garvey, commented in bold type on its front page. Neither the men nor the women seemed content to let Mr. Garvey, Marcus Garvey, alone. Help. It says, in the midst of all his troubles with his invisible empire, quote unquote, his first wife, Amy Garvey number one, who is in England, has filed suit in this country for divorce. Garvey informed the court that the lady was not his wife, since he had divorced her in Missouri. On this point, the Chicago Defender noted that, quote, it was reported some months ago that the West Indian had received a divorce from his first wife at Spencer, Missouri, after traveling there incognito. If that report is true, the first Mrs. Garvey is probably unaware of it. Amy's new suit for absolute divorce this time was initiated in August of 1922, shortly after Garvey's wedding to Amy Jakes. So the way she's moving, she probably didn't know that he pulled a fast one. For the third straight year, Marcus thus found himself an entanglement with Amy, in legal proceedings with Amy in the midst of his international convention. Yo, Amy's like, every time convention come round, I go in scandal you. Every time convention come round, she scandal him. Okay? It says here, Marcus denied that he and Amy Jakes were resident in New York. He affirmed that he had resided in Kansas City, Missouri for over a year prior to his divorce from Amy Ashwood and were still resident there. Now, come on, no, Marcus. What was that? A small lie? Because how you live in Missouri for 1 year and you are the president headquarters in Harlem? It says here, where are we? Amy, not to be outdone, claimed that Marcus had never obtained a divorce in any New York court on the grounds of adultery or any other court of any state or territory of the United States or elsewhere. It was not clear for her lawyer's convoluted sentence whether the qualifier of adultery referred to the New York courts only or all courts. Amy Jakes, represented by the same lawyer as her new husband, denied Amy Ashwood's charges of adultery and demanded dismissal of the suit with costs. With Amy in Europe and Marcus preoccupied with the 1923 mail fraud trial that eventually sent him to prison, the new divorce suit languished until December 1924 when Amy arrived back in New York. Dang, Amy, that was a long trip, bro. You was going for what, 2 years, fam? What you did over there, do? It says here, she promptly filed a supplemental complaint alleging open and flagrant adultery, help us, between Marcus and Amy Jakes in the 2 and more years since the initiation of his new suit. While away, Amy had traveled extensively in Europe, where by 1924 she visited London, Paris, Brussels, Berlin, Lekring, and Rome. In 1929, she again mentioned having traveled extensively in Europe and added that she had visited Africa as well. You know that I got born Marcus, because Marcus like for brag, and him there a pop style pan him say she been there to where he's been and more. Back in Jamaica for a short stay in 1924, she explained the purpose of her European ramblings this way. I really went to Europe to study conditions, social problems, human nature, in fact, and part of a social and educational program which I'm working on in behalf of Nigeria. The Jamaica Regina reporter with whom she was speaking, could not resist the obvious question. But isn't this a part of Marcus? He began. Amy did not let him finish. No, she interrupted. Quite different. She went on to explain the difference between her latest activities and Garveyism. This is an educational movement, pure and simple, and there's nothing whatsoever to do with politics. My view is that the Negro as a race is not yet ripe for political emancipation. So she said, revamp this thing. Gavin or depend it. I'm going to tell you, this thing need education before you jump to the end point. That's what me I hear from her. You tell me what you hear. My view is that the Negro as a race is not yet ripe for political emancipation, a view which certainly did not differentiate her from Garvey. Did differentiate her from Garvey. She continued, you must educate him before he will be able to understand anything about politics. I worked with Garvey for 6 years, started with him here in Jamaica, and continued in the United States. I saw where he was wrong. Shots. She's like, me sit down, me know what me talk about. Garvey, him got this thing wrong. Ain't me. Why didn't you advise him then? Was the next obvious question. Amy must have anticipated this, for her reply was emphatic. Of course I advised him, was her retort. But he, can we all guess, wouldn't listen. Success had turned his head. He thought everybody wrong who didn't agree with him. He abused the intelligentsia of our own race whenever they expressed any opinion different from him. You had only to disagree with him and he became your enemy. And listen to our soul. And we see this even before Amy. We see this the moment somebody disagrees with him, he's writing a long, extensive letter in the Gleaner. He's the king of clapback, right? So what she's saying is true based on his own activities. He was into it with everybody. With everybody, not everybody, with everybody. The reporter was determined to play devil's advocate and was none disturbed by the vehemence of Amy's condemnation of her former husband. Did her view of Garvey's ideas, he now wanted to know, have anything to do with their domestic breach, quote unquote? Dang, reporter. This time he caught her off balance and she could manage only a week. Yes, it had. Anyway, she added, quickly moving on to another point, I am working on my own lines now, and I'm concerned particularly with Nigeria. She went on to describe the Nigerian Progress Union, NPU, which had recently organized in London for the well being of Nigerian students in England and the continent. The union, she said, had already collected funds towards building a hostel in London. So she, because this is what she was interested in before she met Garvey, learned from her experience with him and continued the work in a vein that she thought would have been more fruitful. Amy was speaking here more or less contemporaneously with the events she described, and for once, the historical record richly corroborates her claims. Then the author be like, he said for once, why y'all? The Nigerian Progress Union was a testimonial to the organizing skills which she had sharpened inside the UNIA. La, Ladipo Solanki, its secretary, verified the fact that the NPU had been, quote, conceived, born, and mothered by Amy. He was writing in the US based Spokesman magazine, edited by former high ranking Garveyites Thomas W. Anderson and William H. Ferris. So a lot of him people where Amy was so there with, them left him, and no, she was working with them. Solanki served from London as foreign correspondent. He had a BA from Durham University and was a law student at both University College of the University of London and Middle Temple. He would later be influential and long-standing leader of the London-based and better known West African Students' Union. In 1946 lecture in Kano, Nigeria, Solanki described the union as a direct outgrowth of the Nigerian Progress Union. This means that Amy can take credit for having inspired one of the most important organizations in the history of anti-colonial endeavor in the former British West Indian colonies. Interesting. Amy is taking a turn, hopefully, and she's exhibiting some redeeming qualities. Let's read a little more. For those who just joined us, welcome. Yeah, that's what they said, Norman. Hypnotech. I saw that on documentaries as well. Like a lot of people said the same thing. His downfall is that him not listening. Several prominent citizens of Lagos provided or pledged their support for the task of constructing the Nigerian Progress Union. This included Henry Carr, a former resident of Lagos, and the kings of several African tribes. As Amy put it in her interview, or to her interviewer, they understood what I'm driving at, she explained, and they want it. They want education, not politics. Other members of the NPU included, Mr. Adishigbi, described as a leading printer of Lagos. Dr. C.C. Adeniyi Jones, one of the 3 elected members of Lagos Legislative Council, and his 2 daughters attending English College, Miss Doris Williams, a student at Tryon College in England, and her father, Augustus Williams of Lagos, and others. Most of them law students in London. Some Gold Coast students were among them, the members, including 2 sons of late Chief Tamaklo of Akin. Yeah, forgive me if I messed up the names. So here we're seeing that they're going to go a little bit more into Amy's adventures, because remember I said, what was Amy doing over there for 2 years? Amy was setting up shop. Amy was like, we're going to show you how it's really done. I'm going to jump down here a little bit. On September the 25th, 1924, by which time Amy was back in Jamaica, Adeniyi Jones delivered the keynote address at a London reception in honor of the Emir of Katsina, northern Nigeria. So again, Amy is doing what Marcus was not able to do. After naming herself the provisional president of Africa, she was actually able to touch down on the continent and make real change. All right, let me jump down here. It says here, hold on. The union's goals enunciated at this time including educating the masses of southern Nigeria to help solve the social and economic problems of Nigeria, to promote race pride among them and foster the spirit of independence, and to supervise education of African girls in England. The special emphasis on African girls here mirrored Amy's deepening interest in women's concerns. At this point, Amy seems to have seen her success with the Nigerian Progress Union as a repudiation of Garvey's Pan Africanism, which she thought tended to view Africans worldwide as essentially one people, whatever their local peculiarities were. Her critique of Garvey on this question was lengthy. Garvey's idea of encouraging skilled Caribbean and African American pioneers to take their expertise to Africa, she now chose to interpret as a hegemonistic design on Africa. She said, Mr. Garvey's idea of an African kingdom was a geographic blunder, and that's correct because they're not a monolith, right? There are too many tribes, each differing from one another in customs, that it is quite impossible to form them into a single people. She's right. What is more, they want no Afro-Americans or West Indians as rulers over them because you haven't stepped foot in the land. How are you going to name yourself provisional president of Africa? They want no kings or dukes or earls created over here, sent there to them. Mr. Garvey never did a worse thing for his movement than when he began to create peers, for all that he succeeded in doing was to bring his whole scheme into ridicule, and what was good in his plans naturally suffered with what was bad. The native African is a suspicious creature, she says. He has his doubts about all outsiders, and he was particularly doubtful about Marcus Garvey, who he thought was out to get him into trouble. Listener, what time with that pun? Yeah, I'm gonna stop right there. I'm gonna stick a pin right there because how did he feel? How did he feel watching and hearing and seeing Amy out here doing the most while he's going down for male frog? Like all of this is happening, like they say, contemporaneously. All of this is happening at the same time. And Amy is like, that's why she said to Amy number 2, I wasn't even here when he was going down. I had nothing to do with it. I'm going to drop the link in the box really quick. Let me know your thoughts on that. We had to pivot because I thought we were going to get to Sam, but we didn't get to Sam yet. I miscalculated. My apologies. So he pulled a fast one. I was making noise last time, like just produce the paperwork. And according to this, he had paperwork. Now, how legitimate is the paperwork? That remains to be seen. But Marcus said, I got you. I got paperwork. So with that said, we are going to put that right there. Let me know if you have any thoughts. I'm going to come to the comment section and then we are going to wind down. We're going to wind down. Yep, that's what this conversation is about, Norman. Marcus, like everybody else, had his positives and his negatives. He just went all gas, no brakes. What many people don't do, he just believed in himself to the degree that it gave him blind spots. Because you can go beyond where now you don't listen to anybody at any time. And then that causes you, before pride comes before a fall. Right. And so when you get blinded by this pride and this desire and you listen to no one, then you are literally setting yourself up for destruction. And so he kind of got himself to that point. And well, ain't no stopping us now. No problem, Queenie. Welcome to the conversation. So does anybody else have anything to say? Kevin says that he must say, though, one of the reasons why it's important to obtain all the volumes of the books of the UNIA papers is to get a balanced view of how Africans felt about this Back to Africa program. That's a lot of volumes. I'm over here trying to get, I think I'm missing number 3. I'm trying to piece it together, Kevin. The young one's like, Mommy, where are you going with all of these Marcus Garvey books? I definitely understand. It's a lot. If this is your area, like I mean, with all these books, I mess around and write a whole thesis But with it's it's definitely something for us to take a step back from and look, like what Amy had just said. Marcus, there were some missteps in his rationale that, although they sound good at the time, cause people to take a step back from what your agenda. Like, once you named yourself the provisional president, I tell you, when we did the juxtapose Marcus to uh, Napoleon, who names himself emperor of France, we're seeing that he's taking his cues from there. So once I read that, I'm kind of understanding his movements. But still, bro, did you have counsel? Did they tell you that, what I mean, nothing not going for them, and then that they needed you to be their provisional president? Norman says that his father, who is passed, and our condolences, was a man like Marcus, came from St. Andrew, Jamaica, driven, and did not listen to wise counsel. And that's a dangerous thing, not listening to wise counsel. There's a proverb that says a word is enough for the wise. You know what I'm saying? And there's also a proverb that tells you that after many rebukes, you should be destroyed without remedy, right? So there are many proverbs that tell you that there's a time to listen, there's a time to seek counsel, there's a time to weigh the matter, because there's no way. It says, lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge the Creator, and He'll make your path straight, right? So when you begin to think that only intellect is going to get you there, or only knowledge, I think getting knowledge is important, but only knowledge is not going to do it, because without wisdom and without getting understanding, you just know a lot of things. You don't know how to put it together. You don't know what it means. You understand? Okay. To be clear, Kevin is saying he was elected as provisional president after the first UNIA. Hence, he was voted even by Africans. Okay, we need some more clarity on that one. We could use some more clarity on that one. Which one of the Africans elected him provisional president of Africa? That I would like to learn more about. I remember reading about it, but as you're speaking about it now, that would also be something to look into. Who did they agree? Was there a unifying body in Africa that agreed, that say, yes, Garvey, we agree that you should be the provisional president of Africa? You know what I mean? And then what did that mean? And how would he have really been able to operate in this office, never having never having known the culture, never having, done the things that would need to be a president? Those are just some questions that I had, because I do remember seeing that, and that he got in this position, but and Kevin is the one who sends a lot of information. So I want to thank you for all that you have contributed to this conversation, all the hints that you've put in the box, the corrections, so that we can be correct on record. So I definitely thank you for that. But those are just some questions. Again, the mic is open if you want to share. If not, you can type it. I will read it. No problem. But there's so much here that I'm learning as I'm learning with you guys. There's stuff that I've glossed over, and there's stuff that if this is your forte, then definitely share that as well. So with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and wind down. I got a few other things to do. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in and sharing. And we will be back at another time to speak more about Mr. Marcus and Amy, who is now kind of trying to clean it up a little bit. This is making me think that her issue was really with Marcus. Yeah, I know, Kevin. Kevin over here keeps talking about getting all these papers. You need all this space for all of these papers. I know it's expensive to obtain. You trying to piece the stuff together one by one. But I think for the general consensus, for just this information that we have as it is now, I think it has enriched our understanding collectively of what we're going on. That was crazy. What was going on at that time, right? And so we'll continue to look through the ones that we have at this time. Yeah, definitely. I don't think everybody gonna buy all the papers. I don't think everybody gonna get all the papers, Kevin. I'm just saying. That's a large investment right there. So with that said, everybody have a blessed day. I'm going to run this commercial. Cause Kevin over here try to get me to buy all of the papers. So then we need to buy some Yummy Cottage book and some some soul therapy books, some Island Twist and all of those books, right? Because really, all right, I'm gonna run this commercial and then we're gonna wind down. Everybody have a blessed day.
Real quick, this is Amuna, author and storyteller, and I have a new release available on Amazon because I love writing and reading stories. This is a Caribbean American tale about love and culture. We have a young girl named Jackie, and she gets into it with a lot of frenemies and some other people that's trying to take away our rights. So go ahead and check out Island Twist, available on Amazon today. Now let's get back to the story.
Listener, all of this jokes and reading got me feeling a little hungry. Do you guys come with your snacks ready, or do you think it's time for an ITAL food break? The Russ and him Empress say, yeah, ITAL food break. So listener, this is Imuna, and not only do I read and write novels, I also do a little something, something. Well, a kind of big something in the kitchen, right? So I wrote this amazing Hey Pumpkin cookbook. Inside, pumpkin seed milk, carrot punch, smoothie, listener, even jerk tofu strips. But the tofu is made from pumpkin seeds. So join me on a culinary adventure with the pumpkin seed as we explore the benefits of this green superfood. You already know potassium, zinc, it is loaded and highly beneficial. Again, a high source of iron, zinc, magnesium, vitamin E, and it helps boost the immune system. This book, as well as Island Twist, is available on Amazon today. So go on over and let's get back to the story. All right, all right, all right. Kevin over here trying to start a whole fund for all of these UNIA papers. Merciful Father. They trying to make me a UNIA expert. Y'all know what? Listen, in the meantime, for those who want to support the books that we already were able to get and get a few more, if you want to just give to the Cash App, you can do it too. I'll shout you out and let you know when the books come in. But we still going through Amy, and we still got Amy number 2 over there. So I think we're going to be busy for a good little time now. But with that said, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Everybody have a blessed day. One.